Since American Horror Story Hotel first came out, fans of the show have frequently expressed their dislike of that season. Most people have considered it as one of their least favorite of all the 10 seasons of American Horror Story. And while I do respect people's opinions, come on, you can't possibly say that Hotel was worse than 1984. You must be lying. That season was a tragedy. People have frequently disrespected that season for multiple reasons. Some said that the plot was all over the place, some hated the superficiality of the show and referred to it as style over substance, and some were just simply mad because Jessica Lange wasn't in it. I believe that people simply misunderstood the meaning of the whole show. People thought it was just a superficial story about a creepy hotel with vampires and serial killers, but it really wasn't. This video will be an attempt to change the views of the AHS Hotel haters. I will first discuss the general message of the show. The whole show discusses the concepts of religion, addiction, and evil. I believe that the Hotel Cortez is actually an allegory for hell. I strongly recommend you to read this Reddit post that I referenced while writing this. I mean, think about it. The hotel is full of dead people. It's a timeless place where horrible, awful things happen in. It was also shown by Cordelia Good in Apocalypse, who reveals that the Hotel Cortez is not merely a haunted location, but a hellmouth itself, also known as a gateway into hell.
I realized then that the hotel wasn't merely haunted, but an entryway to all things dark and satanic. No! Where the devil reigns.
The hotel was created by James Patrick March for an evil purpose.
He put every atom of evil in his being into building this hotel.
The whole building is a hub for sin. People do the most heinous, shameful acts there. It's basically the Overlook Hotel, but more glamorous. Which takes us to the point of the glamorous nature of the show. The excessive beauty and style of the hotel has been criticized as style over substance. But what if that's not true? What if you were just not looking? In my opinion, the excessive use of classy Art Deco styles in hotel is intentional, because it sheds light into the shallowness behind this classy veneer. The Hotel Cortez isn't a fun place. It's literally hell. Almost everyone is actually miserable in the hotel.
Who gives a shit if they tear this place down and send us all straight to hell? It can't be any worse.
The Countess is definitely the most glamorous character yet, and there's something visceral about the excessive violence that seems more artsy than realistic. Almost all the scenes with Elizabeth that are super violent are like performance art. The concept of violence seen as art is repeated throughout the season constantly. Addiction is also a recurring theme that's always looming around in the story. When it comes to the Countess, there is a journey through her need to drink blood to survive and stay young, and that's intertwined with other character stories of addiction. Many characters are addicts in some form in the show. Sally, Tristan, and Donovan are drug addicts. John is an alcoholic. March is addicted to killing, and Iris and Alex are weirdly addicted to their sons. It shows addiction as the public sees it versus how it truly is, and how that all plays into each other. The addiction demon, in a way, is a manifestation of addiction. There's a lot of scenes of the addiction demon that metaphorically show the pull and the weight that addiction has over a human being. The Cortez is one of those rundown hotels in downtown LA that attracts people who are looking for privacy, for a way to hide out and disappear. People show their true colors in the Cortez. This season shows the dichotomy of the two worlds. You have the hotel world, and then you have the outside world. In the hotel world, there are no rules, where darker desires are fulfilled.
We have two selves. One, the world needs us to be compliant, and the shadow. Ignore it and life is forever suffering.
AHS Hotel was about reinvention. It's very different from all the other seasons in the whole show. It wasn't really scary, but it was very entertaining to watch. Everything about the style of it was great. The set, the soundtrack, the outfits, everything was just spot on. But the secret of the show's greatness was actually the characters. Specifically, the character of the Countess and James March. Without them, this show wouldn't be what it was. In many ways, the Countess and James March are truly two sides of the same coin. They actually fascinated and intrigued me so much that I dedicated an analysis for both of these characters, starting with the Countess.
I'm the Countess.
Countess of what?
With those blue eyes, I'll be the Countess of whatever you like, baby.
The Countess reminds me of a dark goddess, a Lilith figure symbolizing lust, sensuality, and carnal desire. She also characterizes all things taboo or wicked. The Countess, the man-eater, is smart and calculated. She does not like to share what is hers, as shown with Tristan. Despite considering herself to be a mother figure to her vampire children, the Countess exemplifies the dichotomy between being a mother and a monster. Throughout the season, she has a complex relationship with her vampiric children, whom she eventually kills to survive. And that really is her personality. She would kill anyone and everyone to survive. Everyone around her eventually perishes due to just being around her.
Nobody that gets within 10 feet of me survives.
Her story is based on the Countess Elizabeth Bathory, who was a Hungarian nobleman who lived from 1560 to 1614. She has inspired many vampire legends because she had a reputation for killing young virgin women and bathing in their blood to retain her youth and beauty. Elizabeth, who likes to consume herself with art, fashion, and people, lives an empty life, trying to satiate her desires as much as she can. She lives a fake life, with lovers she doesn't feel anything for. Her room indicates the shallow life she lives in. Just like March, she has a hunger for control. Control that she realizes eventually is a lie.
The last 100 years of my immortal life have been a lie. The illusion of control. In truth, I have controlled nothing.
Elizabeth does not submit to anyone, but instead enjoys people's submission to her. She believes in giving in to your desires fully, no matter how horrible or how sinful it is. All in all, she's not a great person.
She's a bitch with no conscience, no mercy, no soul.
Elizabeth is both complex and emotionally layered, having existed for a little over a century. On the outside, Elizabeth appears nonchalant and cold, displaying a masterful personality that is exceedingly manipulative. However, she still has somewhat of a moral compass, if you would call it that. She does not believe in killing children, preferring instead to save them from neglect, making them blood relatives, and feed on a limited amount of their blood at a given time. Elizabeth's childhood is never told, but one can suspect she was abused as a child as well, as shown with her desire to save children that are discarded and abused.
I saved him, like I save all my children. From what? Neglect?
Helping Liz transition into her true self was a beautiful scene that showed that she still had some humanity in her.
I can't go out like this.
Oh, honey. Goddesses don't speak in whispers, they scream.
And I guess she kinda likes that little Antichrist looking child.
Damn!
Her story is a story of grief, stagnation, and constant longing for the past that she's trying to recreate. In the last scene, we see her attracting the attention of yet another handsome young thing. We can see that she hasn't changed at all. Life and death goes on in the Cortez as before. She's still looking for a replacement for Valentino. She's still stuck in that vicious cycle.
Well, I had it all once. Fortune, fame, but nothing satisfied.
James's father was very religious and applied to be abusive towards young James, resulting in his resentment for religion and God.
You want me to tell you the worst thing in this world? Religion. That and regulations.
He states that he was going to have to kill God, because as long as there was God, men like himself would never find peace. He also went as far as to collect all the Bibles from the hotel bedstands and arrange them in a pile with his victims. Mr. Marsh has a distinctly sadistic personality, and yet he is very charming, and he seems to get pleasure in releasing a deadly rage onto his victims. The methods in which he kills them are quite theatrical. He creates a sacrilegious serial killer art piece that he tries to finish for over 100 years. And again we see this association between violence and art.
Death is your art.
Particularly with the serial killer theme of creating sin as a living art piece. The 10 Commandments victims found dead with their bodies mutilated in metaphorical representations of sin. March is a man who kills for pleasure and completely embraces his distorted, addictive, deadly desires. March has a huge disdain for rules and therefore a disdain for the 10 Commandments. So he decides to desecrate it. He murders in part as to wage a personal battle against God. Now I have to be impartial and discuss the cons of the show. I don't think that the show needed to focus on John's character as much as it did. It felt at times like he was stealing screen time from other characters who could shine also. I would have loved to see more of Liz, Sally, and even Iris. Instead, they just gave us more of John. And I'll admit, the show had some cringe-worthy moments.
You used to call me on my cell phone. Late night when you need my love.
The addiction demon scene in the first episode was way too much in my opinion, and it never clarified where it actually came from. We just know that somehow James has control over it. Ramona Royale deserved way better. Her character was way underused, her desires, motivations, and loyalties have been unclear from the beginning. Eventually, her character was just used as a plot device to move other character stories. At times, the show was too reliant on blood and gore, which didn't particularly help it become any more scary. The happy ending of Hotel seems so contradictory to the tone, probably because people who don't deserve a happy ending get it, which I think was done due to the people complaining about everyone dying in the previous season freak show. Liz was the only main character that actually had a moral compass, and the only main character that deserved a happy ending. Am I the only one that didn't like Sally that much? She kind of annoyed me a little. She was still an interesting character, I suppose. I mean, she literally trapped people inside of mattresses so they can stay with her forever. The Countess said it best.
You have serious abandonment issues.
I guess watching her was pretty frustrating, cause her unhappiness was mainly due to her standing in her own way. And why was she f***ing crying all the time? The whole Billie Dean situation was very weird. Scarlett should honestly run away from her family the first chance she gets and never look back. Although Hotel had a lot of flaws, this season dealt with many issues, like addiction and abuse, and it played with the concept of time as fluid. By mixing the styles of the cool 80s neon crossed with the 20s Art Deco, many of the characters that die in the hotel remain exactly the same after their deaths, having the same issues and perpetually struggling just as much. Time doesn't really move forwards in the hotel, and no one moves on. The season really feels like it went full circle. Sally throwing out her needle was like her getting pushed out of the window. John laying on the bed with his family was like him taking a nap in the first episode. Liz Taylor was the best, most sympathetic depiction of a trans character I have ever seen. The Countess coming back to help Liz transition for one last time was one of the truly heartwarming moments of the show. If there was one thing the show was able to do all season long, it was to offer something unexpected around the next corner. That is one of the hallmarks of horror. You shouldn't be able to see what's coming. People who are unsatisfied were probably hoping for a more logical thread of events, but this season offered something different. As a narrative, it often left you in the dark, looking for something that wasn't there. Sometimes the best reason to keep watching was for the style, with its bizarre blend of morbid glamour. To their credit, they wrapped up all the major storylines pretty neatly. The Devil's Night episode was one of the best episodes of the entire American Horror Story. All of the actors played their characters to a T. Any serial killer fanatic can appreciate the greatness of it all. The thing is with American Horror Story is that it's very subjective. There's no way to tell from others' opinions which will be your favorite, but this season hasn't been given the credit it deserves. Not only was it fascinating to see, but it was a complete experience, and to me, that is truly enough. Thank you for watching. Like, subscribe, support a starving artist. If you've watched this whole video and still think that Hotel was terrible,
I am going to remind you in advance that I am very sorry and I apologize for the inconvenience of me not giving a fuck what you think.
No, I actually thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and bye!
You used to call me on my cell phone.